Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Watchlist here on the SPM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my show where each episode I play some movie roulette with my enormous movie watch list, and my guest and I wind up talking about whatever the hell we land on. And joining me for the second time on this show is my buddy Joe, member of the movie club, and Joey T. Cartoon P. Thanks for coming on, Joe.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And we landed on 2005's Wes Craven directed horror flick, Cursed. But were we?
I felt like we were cursed watching it, that's for sure.
We were the cursed who wound up watching this film, which was released February 28th, 2005. Would only have made more sense if it was January. This 97-minute film wound up costing $100 million after estimated after like 4 different shoots to pull this movie together. There's a lot of background here, but it only made $28 million. This was also written by Kevin Williamson, and I'm using air quotes right now because he did indeed write a script that was completely rewritten and looked almost nothing like his actual script, which makes a lot of sense when you watch the movie. This is starring Christina Ricci, Jesse Eisenberg, Joshua Jackson, Judy Greer, and more. A lot of people from this time. You had like Milo Ventimiglia. You had Michael Rosenbaum. This originally was meant to release in 2003, but took over 2 years of extended reshoots to actually get this together. The Weinsteins forced a lot of plot changes, as in like the whole plot, changing it, and re-editing it down to a PG-13 rating. Legend Rick Baker's makeup and everything, and werewolf design and everything was used in the first version of the movie, and then was completely taken out, reworked, and then taken out again, and then just replaced it with CGI mandated by the Weinsteins. So, and then Wes Craven did not like the end result of this. He had already moved on to a whole other film, including them reshooting whole entire scenes with somebody else. And this was originally written in 2000 and was supposed to be a werewolf serial killer film in New York City. So that was actually Williamson's script. Certainly didn't wind up being that because major rewrites happened because of Sean Hood and Tony Gayton. James Brolin, Robert Forster, Corey Feldman, Omar Epps, and John C. McGinley were all written out of the film during these heavy reshoots and reworkings of the story. The original shot filmed 90 minutes of the film, and then they only wound up using 12 minutes of that original footage through 3 reshoots afterwards. So yes, there are indeed 3 other versions of the script, including an unfinished Wes Craven version that they never got to shoot the ending. And in 2018 began the hashtag Release the Craven Cut campaign of this film. What a ride this movie was. Joe, what are your general thoughts on Cursed?
I mean, watching it, I remember that there was a trailer when the movie first came out when I was a kid, and I remember being like 15, 13 years old at the time thinking that this looked like crap. So I will at least like to say like 15, 20 years later that it's not as bad as I think of. I mean, I've seen some clunkers over the years, so to say that this is the worst thing ever is not that bad. But I mean, that's like comparing, a shot in the leg to a shot in the arm. It's not really doing much of a difference. You're going to still lose a lot of blood here. I honestly feel like there were moments of levity, Wes Craven, yucks and self-awareness. But what really dragged the movie down is this lack of vision and cohesionness, where is this going to be a superhero werewolf flick? Is this going to be a serial killer monster movie? Or is this going to be the Scorpion King? Because let me tell you, Mummy Returns type CG going on here. It did not. I mean, the werewolves didn't look like hyenas or anything. They look more like were bats, like an actual bat without
There's a
Yeah.
couple of moments. There's one point where somebody turns into a werewolf right in
Yeah.
front of us, and the CGI was atrocious.
Very bad.
But then, like a couple minutes later, there was a shot of an actual actor in a werewolf costume flipping the bird, and that was hilarious.
That was.
So like it has some moments.
It does. I mean, I'll have to say, like, CG so bad, it actually reminded me of Blade Trinity, where characters' eyes are being masked by
Mhm,
really bad CG, where it's almost like they're not, you can tell that they're not even like using their actual eyes. Like, and
mhm.
it's just a dumb effect that they could have used, contact lenses for to do that same effect. And yet they didn't. I guess they were thinking like Mac from Always Sunny. They want to go for gas. And that
There,
was their way of doing it.
there's literally a shot of Judy Greer where you could tell she was nowhere near
Oh,
where they were filming.
oh, it was
Um,
so obviously a green screen. Like we were watching it together, and the more I reflected on the movie, Judy Greer's character didn't feel like she belonged there. Like I felt like she was a character that was really just thrown in.
they
Because
definitely felt like they shoehorned in this character to try to soften the well, like kind of like soften the blow of one of the other werewolves because like there's a lot of werewolves in this. Like
yeah,
the two protagonists get turned into werewolves. So like right off the bat, you have that, and then you have these like mystery quote unquote of who the original werewolf was, and both of like it tries to go Scream. This does like all the worst things that you could have learned from Scream.
yeah.
There's so many great things about Scream, and they chose all the worst possible lessons to learn from that.
This feels like the movie that they make fun of in
Mhm.
Scream,
Yeah.
which to me is just really mind-boggling that Wes Craven would go into that direction. But as we're talking about, it really wasn't him; it's the studio.
Well, it definitely sounded like it wasn't a Wes Craven movie by the
No,
time this version of the movie actually came out, and it definitely didn't seem like it was a Kevin Williamson script either.
no, this is Bob and Harvey just trying to put something together to put into theaters. It was 2005. Superhero movies were becoming popular, and I feel like they really wanted to push that into this film that was essentially a horror version, like a werewolf version of Scream.
And the thing is, if you wanted to make a monster movie, superhero movie, they missed out on the boat because Van Helsing came out.
Exactly.
So we
Exactly.
already got that. Which, mind you,
Dodged a bullet.
the CGI of the werewolf in that is incredible. Rewatching that on my lovely 4K copy of Van Helsing that I
Yeah.
bought, like it's so obvious that they did not put in the time and effort to make good effects in this movie.
No, like even there was that one quote unquote money shot of a transformation, and like every werewolf movie, every iconic werewolf movie, even like simple werewolf movies, the transformation is usually like
It's
the highlight.
important.
It's important because like you get to see the transformation. It's a use of good cinematography and whatnot, and it looked like the Scorpion. It looked like the Scorpion King from A Mummy Returns and Scrappy Doo from the first Scooby Doo movie.
It You have American Werewolf in London, which kind of sets the benchmark
Mm-hmm.
for werewolf transformations.
Mm-hmm.
And even in Van Helsing, they do something interesting where it's like ripping off their skin, and you have that really dramatic change back into Hugh Jackman at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
film. It's like there was something inspired there. This was not inspired.
Even Underworld had an
Yeah.
inspired transformation, and that movie relied heavily on practical effects.
This just them trying to say this was like a new look for werewolves in movies, and like them trying to revolutionize werewolves like they revolutionized slashers with Scream is a joke because you did have Underworld and Van Helsing out around this time doing something way better than this. And this leaned into so many bad tropes of movies from this time, including the latent homophobia and the dumb gay all along character reveal for one of the characters.
Before we go into that, I do want to say if it takes us Italians, hot, sweaty, hairy Italian people to know what makes a good werewolf movie, since essentially
Yes.
we are werewolves. But
Yes.
you could tell that this movie was made in 2005 with how they wanted to handle homosexual characters.
Yes. It
Um,
was so dumb.
because in the 90s we had some of the worst portrayal of homosexual characters, LGBT characters in film and media, right?
Yep.
you can tell that, oh, but we need to be a little bit more progressive. We want to be a little bit more inclusive, but we have no fucking clue how to do that because making fun of gay people is funny.
Scary Movie was less offensive
Yeah.
with how it handled the gay character than this movie. And I was literally making a joke about it.
Yeah, Wayne's brother, who played the character, was actually more progressive as a gay character than this one.
And none of the characters are interesting in this movie.
Ugh.
There's not a single interesting character in this movie. Everybody's just kind of there. Like Shannon Elizabeth is hot. That's basically what her job is.
Portia del Rossi
As like a gypsy woman straight out of like this has like very, very like lazy homages to like the original Wolfman film,
Right.
and that was one of them. I'm just like, you have her playing a gypsy woman, of course. And like Christina Ricci's character has no characterization. Joshua Jackson has no characterization. Jesse Eisenberg just turns into like a curly Jewish hair to
to emo Peter.
Like, yes. Joe made a comment while we're watching this movie.
Spoiler alerts, they get cured. And I thought it was going to be so funny that when they actually get cured, if his hair would just like curly, just curly, it's like, is the curse broken?
That would have been more entertaining than the ending we actually got. Because, like, I'll give this movie credit. There's one sequence that had a lot of promise and delivered a bit. It's a parking garage, and all the close-ups, where you can tell like this is an actual suit and makeup, looked really cool with this werewolf.
Yeah,
they were building some tension, and then it turned into a chase.
Yeah.
And then it turned into a rubber band werewolf man just running across cars.
And it got to that point in that chase scene where, like, when I was looking at you and it's like, oh, she's in the elevator. It's like, well, you realize she could have just went up the stairs
and then
attacked. And then I look and it's like, oh yeah, because that's what happens in that scenario.
And because this is now a PG-13 movie, they cut horribly at a moment so that you wouldn't see what happens to this character.
I also want to say, I think having it, this is one of the biggest sins about PG-13 movies in the aughts around this time period, is because they figured they would get away with fake looking blood or fake looking effects to get away with making it R-rated. And it just makes it look so much more stupid and so much worse, where it's like
blood from the 60s.
Yeah.
Like there's like 50 years of filmmaking advancement.
Yeah.
And this still looks cheap as hell.
And if you really think about it, take that blood out and just put in actual blood, it would not make that much of a difference for the censor, other than one looking like a cartoon effect versus another one looking like actual, like something, I want to say believable, because like that one scene where Joshua Jackson's, head is or blows up like in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah,
like could have looked really cool like in Nightmare on Elm Street.
There's a moment where you have Shannon Elizabeth and it's half her torso, and like they could have done horrible CGI to like recreate half a human torso for it, and at least they just like CGI'd the bottom off of her.
Yeah,
and it's just like,
it did remind me of the Scary Movie effect where the girl's getting her head cut off.
Yes,
it looked just like that.
This movie has no interesting characters, barely has a plot, and it's just like the most half-hearted character reveals, and even the performances aren't that great. I feel like one person that I could tell had some fun here was Judy Greer. I feel like she did.
Hey, listen, she came on set probably last minute. She got paid for it. She got to have fun in a werewolf suit. That probably, like, unless she was in that suit or not.
Was not.
She probably wasn't.
There was two actors who played, quote unquote, the werewolves. And it was not the two actors who were the actual werewolves. And then there's just one dream sequence, which horrible cliche of horror movies, dream sequence. That particular scene was shot by a different director because it was not part of the movie. But the Weinsteins want to put that scene in, and Wes Craven had nothing to do with it, and you could tell.
Oh, 100%.
Because it was directed so poorly.
It's the one with the fountain that
like a giant bite out of the neck is like.
And it makes no sense because, for one, they're not werewolves yet. They didn't get their powers yet, or like that scene hasn't really come in yet.
Well, and that's the thing too, because this is so inconsistent with like Like it's like they're gonna turn into werewolves eventually, and it's just like when the hell?
Oh
Like
no, well, out of plot convenience. Oh, it takes a while. That's literally what Joshua Jackson's character tells Christina
except it
Ricci.
didn't when it happened to their dog. And then it turns into a werewolf dog, which is all CGI and just bouncing around like a rubber ball places.
Listen, I get it. Werewolves don't exist in real life, but
You
what
have to
makes
be
a good you have to be
consistent.
consistent with the lore.
Like this movie is so dumb
Yeah.
and might have some moments. It just like this was probably more enjoyable in 2005 and it probably wasn't even that enjoyable in 2005. It's just this is aged so poorly. And it is so glaringly obvious that this was a hodgepodge of a film to the point where some other backs were like Jesse Eisenberg, who is Christina Ricci's brother in this, was originally supposed to be a vampire hunter that had no connection with her at all in the original script.
He's
And
probably
Jesse
like he
Eisenberg was
probably
just
was
like,
like the kid from the first Jamie Kennedy's character who was just a nerd who is a vampire hunter just because he's just a huge nerd from high school.
well, and he's just like Jesse Eisenberg in an interview was just like, yeah, one day just imagine like we were siblings now. And I'm just like, what? It's like it's that bad like how horribly put together this movie was and it's a shame because this was the third to last film that Wes Craven directed.
Really?
Yes, because he had this and one other film in '05, which he filmed the other film after
Oh
this,
wow.
and they both still came out in 2005. You
What was
could
the other
tell.
one that came out?
Was it Red Eye or something like that?
You know what? I didn't know he directed Red Eye. That was the one with Rachel McAdams, right?
um I don't, I'm pulling up IMDb here, but like this was at the very end of his career, and it's a shame that he had this movie. Yeah, Red Eye from '05,
And that one was decent because it had
starring Rachel McAdams, Killian Murphy,
yeah, it was a
Brian
decent film.
Cox.
Yeah.
Because then he had a segment of Paris Je t'aime, which I actually really liked his section in that film. But then 2010, he had My Soul to Take, and then finally came out with Scream 4 and put out like a quality film before he died.
Yeah.
Because I really like Scream 4.
Me too.
It just,
That's one with Emma Roberts, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it was a good one.
this is a waste of a movie. And which had potential, like you had Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson here. There was potential here.
I'll say this to add to potential because you could tell that this was like a hodgepodge of movies where you can tell, and I told you this while we were watching that Joshua Jackson's character becoming this half serious. He wasn't in full makeup or anything, but he was like a creepy werewolf man,
Mhm.
right, without the big costume or anything. And it did capture that Scream vibe, but it was just so jarring when your last climactic battle, which isn't even a climactic battle, has Judy Greer as a were hyena. You know, like it's totally inconsistent. But there could have been a movie there.
Well, and you had a third act, and then this movie had the cliched fourth act structure, like a lot of horror films. And it's just like, can this movie be over at this point?
Well, at least we laughed.
Yes.
At least we laughed out of the stupidity of it, and that I could say is better than anything. And I'll say this too, like what you were saying before about this movie, you know, being trash when it first came out. Like I said, when this first came out, I was like a teenager, and I looked at the trailer and I was like, this is trash.
Well, we knew early. This is just not a great time and not really worth it. But you know, if you're a completionist and you want to watch all of Wes Craven's movies, it's there.
I will say this: if you are drunk at a Halloween party in college,
You
and
could probably have some fun with
you'll
this.
probably so bear with me, you're really drunk, and then you leave the house because the cops come, and you have to find a pizza place to eat late at night. That's showing on TV at TBS. You can watch for 10 minutes, and that's the only time I'll recommend the movie to watch.
There you go. That is a glowing recommendation from Joe. My recommendation is don't watch it.
A very specific one. Outside of
very
just saying
specific.
don't watch it, the only time I'll ever recommend it is if you're pissed drunk at a college party, you're at a pizza place that's open 24/7 or a diner that's open 24/7, and you got to get through get through the hangover, and it's on the TV screen. That's the only time I'll tell you to watch it.
My favorite odd recommendation from a film critic ever was when Ben Mankiewicz like, "I'd watch this on an airplane."
On an airplane screen or on your phone, or someone
Like,
else is watching it.
it's the one of those movies that they put on while you're in the airplane. Like, it was The Infiltrator from 2016 starring Bryan Cranston, and it was like this crime thriller. He's just like, I had some fun with this. It's the kind of movie you'd watch on an airplane.
Yeah.
Um
And only
so
time, the only time you'll ever watch it on an airplane.
on an airplane. It's a on-air film during your flight. They wouldn't do that to you watching this movie. But yes, if you're drunk and you want to have a dumbass movie to watch,
That just happened to be on the TV without any choice, and you're just there.
Cursed.
Get cursed.
There you go. But Joe, thank you so much for coming on and also watching this movie with me.
You're stuck with me.
Yes, we actually, this is our 10 years of friendship here, and this is how we spent it.
Psychologists say that when you're friends with someone for over 10 years, that means you're done. You're done. There's no going back. You're stuck with it. You're stuck with me.
We're gonna be 80 years old popping on here, watching random movies off my endless watch list.
You remember Cursed?
I didn't want to remember it, Joe. But thank all of you out there for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. What's your favorite Wes Craven movie? Or what's that one horror movie that's so damn bad, but you would watch it drunk, eating pizza with your friends at a party? And make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. The SPM Crew Podcasting Network has a lot of great shows about film, television, music, sports, physical media, comics, and, just talking about life. So make sure to check out all the great shows that we have, including my 5, all about movies. And if you like our logo, go check out High Flyer Creative for all of your digital marketing needs. Or Joe here, because Joe's great and has made some of my logos as well, and I love them. And most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Watchlist here on the SPM Crew Podcasting Network.